Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I'm back with the boys, Kev and Martin, for Aston Villa v Juventus preview. And as we all know, Tuesday night is also fans forum night. So we've got some discussion points to go through a bit later, and obviously your questions and comments. Before we get moving, though, make sure you smash the like button and make sure you hit the subscribe button. Believe it or not, we are 9 subscribers away from 4,800. We know we're on the road to 5K. We're back in the groove with all our shows now. So make sure you're liking and subscribing. We've had some really good support over the last few days. So please keep that going. But we commented before we jumped on the pod. Kev, you mentioned, when was it the last time that the three of us were on a fan forum? It's either been me and you or me and Martin. There's never been opportunity for all three of us. It's good to be back.
I think the last time us three were on together, there was only 4 TV channels, I think. So
Martin was a toddler.
Martin was in nappies. Yeah. You and I just got our first free bus pass. Listen, just a quick point to make, right, before we get into this podcast. I'm good, by the way. Thanks. Martin, you good. So we're all good, right? So Villa at the moment upsetting us all, right? And I think I've understood why it is. Not everybody watching the podcast is liking the podcast, and it's some kind of karma that's going on. So I would put a plea to everybody: if you care about Aston Villa and us breaking this run of just not being able to win, you've got to like the podcast, you've got to share it, you got to subscribe, because I can't think of any other reason why it's just dropped off a cliff. I don't know if you fellas agree with this. Is this theory correct, do you reckon?
It's got to be, yeah. If we are inexplicably linked to Aston Villa Football Club's form. So when people like the podcast and subscribe, then Villa will start winning. But because they haven't been as much, then we're losing.
Yeah. I think it's
100% true. Yeah.
So anything else
not, is fake news.
Even if it's not, let's just try it for one night and then see if it works.
Yes, absolutely. Look, I can't think of any better reason. So yeah. Let's do it. Let's try it. Who is in? James is in. Good evening to you. Stephen, good evening to you, mate. Michael as well. Hello, Kev. 100% right, as always.
Still on the payroll, Michael.
Kev says he wants and expects revenge for 83. Well, let's get into it, Martin, because as you've put on your preparation for the show, the Champions League is back. Feels like it was ages ago that we last played in the Champions League. I think it was because such a poor performance against Bruges felt like a bit of a damp squib, that game. Obviously, we had the highs of Bologna, the highs of Bayern Munich. So it'd be great to kind of get that magic back of the Champions League with a great result tomorrow night, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, because the game against Bruges, I felt we were trying to be too clever with the lineup, wanting to rest players against Liverpool and, probably not respecting Club Bruges as an opposition in the Champions League. I know a lot of people will turn around and say, well, Club Bruges, they're only in Belgium. A team like Aston Villa should be beating Club Bruges. And absolutely so. But when you play near a second-string team in the Champions League against any opposition, you're going to get turned over, because we have to remember, Club Bruges have been in the Champions League for a number of consecutive years. So they're well experienced in the Champions League. It doesn't matter who they play. And, in saying that as well, before that, obviously we've beaten Bologna 2-0. So we were on this high of, winning games in the Champions League. And then when we come up against Club Brugge, we all felt like, right, this is going to be the game to get us back on track. And unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. So hopefully in this game now tomorrow, we can bring that energy back. We can bring the intensity back from the crowd as well into the players, because that's what they're going to need. these Champions League nights at Villa Park are going to be something special, and this is the second last game now at home in the Champions League and the group stage. Obviously, if we win that, we're in a really good position to finish in the top 8, and that's what it's all about.
100%. I mean, Kev, we've talked about some of these games. Juventus, Celtic to come. Bayern Munich has been at home, a historic night in that one, and Juventus is another one where it's another huge game for us to really. I know we'll kind of talk about the difficulties that they're having, but in terms of history, in terms of name, it's another huge name to come to Villa Park.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive, really. And I think for maybe the slightly older fan that remembers the 83 match, even you and I, unbelievably, would not remember that because we were like two and a bit years old. But, that was the last time we played in the Champions League, or as it used to be called, European Cup, until this amazing season, this year when we're back in it. But I mean, even for a slightly less older fan, but somebody of our sort of age, we all would have remembered Juventus, particularly with the Channel 4 coverage of Football Italia, the early mid-90s when Juventus were winning Champions League fairly regularly actually and getting to finals quite a bit. And that team of obviously Del Piero was obviously a big part of that. They had Ravanelli, they had Vialli before that, so they had some absolutely massive names in Italian football just after obviously the Italian 90 World Cup as well. So Italian football was on the up, and Juventus were one of the big clubs. The old lady, playing in the Stadio delle Alpi, like it was just synonymous. They've had their troubles in recent years, of course, but they are a massive club, no doubt about it. And of course, there's the added mix of the fact that there's been some transfer dealings to clubs over the summer as well. But huge tie. I think for Aston Villa, when you consider the big word coming, the juxtaposition of Birmingham City against Shrewsbury, and we've got Juventus in the Champions League. It's absolute night and day at the moment for these two clubs, but you got to make the most of it. What I don't want it to be is a situation where you're making up the numbers. And I think with our recent form, there's a danger that we can start to slide a bit. Yeah, great backs to the wall performance against Bayern. Solid. I thought pretty good performance actually against Bologna. You can lose away in the Champions League. Mike makes a good point about Bruges' regular qualification for it. But we don't want to be now just happy to be there, and happy to get, even a draw would be good. We're Aston Villa, we're at home. It's a perfect opportunity to put our bad run of form behind us and ahead of a massive night under the lights, raucous crowd, Tifo going around. It's time for us to get this season back on track with a big win against this big team.
Absolutely, and Kevin there says the atmosphere will make all the difference tomorrow. And Martin, yeah. I think that's something that we need to get with Villa. I know we haven't necessarily had the performances at home in the Premier League that we've wanted. I think there was something like 6 wins from the last 16 or 17 home games or something like that. But I think some of it as well is yes, we've not been blessed with the kind of scintillating football that we might have had at times, over the last 18 months, 2 years. But sometimes the crowd have got to inspire the fans, inspire the players a little bit more. Like a few times the atmosphere has been really quiet, or kind of we've seen the passing across the back, and then that's maybe where the fans are waiting for the players to do something. Whereas sometimes it's like, we need the fans to kind of bring it and make it more intimidating, almost force the players to really show up and do something. And that's really important for tomorrow night, isn't it?
It's hugely important, because when you consider back, when the Unai Emery early days, we were playing this exciting football, the crowd was getting behind the back, and, it was exciting to always go to Villa Park because you knew you were going to join in with the crowd and really get behind the players, and they would lift the performance. And now we're at a stage of Villa where we're dominating possession so much that teams are now starting to park the bus and catch us on the counter. And we play such a high line. And then fans are now starting to get worried by that. So maybe that's kind of drawn them back a little bit in terms of, right, we're playing great football, but this high line kind of nearly worries me because, we've kind of been caught a few times and got really punished for it, but we'll touch on that obviously later tonight. But in saying that now, but we're at a stage where we're dominating possession so much. Teams are, solidifying themselves, and we're trying to break them down, and we just can't find it. That's kind of a stage where we're at. And then when we eventually do well with our possession, maybe just come a little bit deeper with possession and draw that team forward, we can create that space in behind for ourselves, because we've got some quick players in Bailey. Underratedly, John McGinn can actually be a very quick player at times. Ollie Watkins, Morgan Rogers, these players that can do these transitional stuff and really create space in behind for them will bring that excitement back. And I feel like in big games in the Champions League is where Unai Emery comes to light. He's done it in Villarreal. He's done it even in Munich against Villarreal. He done it. Very nearly got them to the final when they came back from 2 goals down against Liverpool in the semi-final of the Champions League. He's won the Europa League 4 times, and of course we beaten Bayern Munich 1-0. With John Duran with an exceptional goal, a really solidifying performance that we were solid at the back. We didn't leave too much space in behind. We didn't have a high line like we would have. And it was really enjoyable to watch, because we showed that we could be really impactful in our midfield and our defense when we're so close together, and there's just not as much space for teams to try and get through us. And I feel like that's going to be the same game again against Juventus, even though Juventus, funny enough, have a very small squad that they're bringing with them because they've got such a big injury hit at this moment. But even in saying that, it's still Juventus. They still have quality players all over.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say that, and Martin makes a good point. With Juventus allegedly, at the moment having such a small squad, I don't know if it's down to an injury crisis or what. I'm not 100% sure on that. Kev, you might know a bit more than me. But does that make Aston Villa the favourites for this game then, in terms of, the odds side of things with the issues? Or, yeah, I guess, would you still put a Juventus with their experience at the top of the tree in terms of favouritism?
I would say I'm trying to isolate the recent bad patch of form and not get carried away with it. And then I realised that Man City have given away a 3-0 lead at home and conceded 3 goals in the last 15 minutes at home to Feyenoord. So
they haven't.
They have, yeah.
Have they?
They're in injury time now.
Oh, my word.
Oh, they have no.
They're in injury time now, and Feyenoord have scored in the 75th, 82nd, and 89th minute to basically level it. So I'm looking at it thinking, like, there's a situation where, like, even the best of best teams now are in an absolutely horrendous form. So I'm trying to isolate this sticky sort of like last month or so.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Let's keep our fingers crossed, right? But I'm trying to think, you know what? If any teams comes to Villa Park, I don't care if it's Man City, Arsenal, Bayern Munich. I think we should be favourites with the squad that we've got, with the manager that we've got. And we've proven that because we beat Arsenal, Man City and Bayern Munich in the last year at Villa Park. So, that's proven. I think when you add to that the fact that the rumour is that Juventus are only going to have 14 players available with some key players out, then we have to be favourites. And the thing is, I think it's important. We've got to start acting like favourites. When you finish in the Champions League spots, when you have a great start to that Champions League campaign and win the first 3 games, and the best Premier League start in 27, 28 years, whatever it is, you got to live up to that tag now. There's so many examples of sports teams over the years doing that really well and being great front runners. And there's so many examples of people not being able to handle it. I always remember Stephen Hendry in the 1990s in snooker. He was a winning machine. Tiger Woods, a winning machine. Federer, then latterly Nadal and Djokovic. It just felt like they knew when that favourite tag was there, they stepped up. Villa, they're not used to being this team of this kind of ilk, this elite level team. But we've got to start getting used to it now and start dealing with that in the right kind of way. And it's basic mistakes as well, by the way, that are costing us that. I don't think we're playing terribly. I just think it's too safe. And then at the back, it's like the Wild West, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we're going to touch on that in a bit, with regards to some of the issues that we're facing, and it'd be interested to get your two's opinions on that a bit later, and obviously everyone in the chat as well. Just as a slight aside, Gary has pointed out your posh seat, Martin. Have you been knighted? As you seem to have got yourself a nice throne there. And Des thinks you've robbed the local museum or library there as well. So we did comment on this last week, and he gave you, it seemed to make you a little bit more regal, a little bit more assured with your comments. We were we were maybe it's the Lord of the Manor in terms of the Villa Park pod.
You know, when you ever watch The Lord of the Rings and you know Aragorn, where he thinks he's just the humble king. This is what I'm really doing. I'm going back to my seat now, and he even put the video on TikTok off with this
Yes,
chair.
you
And just
did.
blew up.
Yeah, we did.
So
We did.
I'm
Yeah.
just starting to think that the king is back, baby. You know what I mean? He's here to take over.
Staying with you, Mark. Just regards to some of the sort of fitness issues that Juventus are having. Obviously, quite a few players out. There's been a little bit of kidology as well between the coaches, which always adds to the spice. But from a Villa perspective, great to have Boubacar Kamara back and obviously Ezri Konsa back when we're talking, both of them, to be honest, when we're talking about being more solid in terms of defensively. So, you know, that's really important to have those two players back in contention.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because I hadn't even seen on the BBC that the players that they listed that weren't training were Ramsey, Onana, Kamara, and Konza. And then 10 minutes later on the Villa website, there's Konza and Kamara training, and everyone's going, "We want answers. What happened here?" But you know, it's great to have them two back because Kamara is so solid. Like Kamara is nearly thanks, Dave. But Kamara is nearly like our Rodri in a way, you know, because he cleans up everything. He gets himself into great positions in terms of collecting the ball and transitioning from midfield into attack. And then you've got Konza, who speaks volumes in his own name that he's probably one of the best centre halves in the league. I think him and Pau Torres in centre half, in my opinion, should be the partnership. I don't think Konza should be going out to right back at all. But unfortunately, with Matty Cash's injury, unfortunately, he has to go out there. And, you know, we've got Carlos, but it's kind of shaking our defense a little bit. But I feel like with Konza and Kamara back, it's great to have. It's going to really strengthen our defense. But will they start tomorrow? I'm not too sure. Maybe one of them will start and one will be on the bench. But I don't see the two of them starting just because, you know, maybe not Kamara, but probably Konza will start just to get that defense strengthened up, because I feel like the midfield is a really competitive battle at this minute for Kamara.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, Kev. I mean, judging by the performance on Saturday, you know, we were quite sort of, at times we were really good going forward, and we carved Crystal Palace open a few times, but we just looked so vulnerable to any pass coming through our midfield. And then, you know, I felt like Pau Torres was trying to press forward well in terms of trying to take the game to Crystal Palace, but without an Ezri Konsa next to him, kind of mopping up or reading the game, you know, the gap between the gaps between Carlos and Pau Torres is scary. Like, he just doesn't tuck round to cover him when he goes forward. So for me, just having that safety net of Konsa and a Kamara would just make so much difference to me. I would certainly I'd try and have both of them in.
Yeah,
I don't know about
absolutely.
you.
Absolutely, yeah. I think for me, they'd be two of the first names on the team sheet. I don't think we realise how much we've missed Kamara. And I know we all talked about the fact that Louise wasn't the same player. I mean, that was what we were saying, weren't we, when we lost Louise over the summer? Oh, well, you know, it wasn't the same player without Kamara. Well, I think it's become clear now the team isn't the same team without Kamara. And we're still good enough to get results, and we're still good enough to you know, to have a decent start to the season and not be in a terrible position in the league. You know, only a few points outside of the top four. You know, we're one big win away tomorrow from probably going back into the top 4 or 5 of the Champions League. So it's not all doom and gloom, plenty to play for. But it's also easy to have a bit of recency bias, because to have a bit of nostalgia as well. You know, you can look at situations and say, hey, it's great, you know, when we're doing really well, and then all of a sudden we have a bad spell of 5-6 games and it's, you know, we're basically rubbish now. And it also, we look back on that probably 18 months ago when we would have had Kamara in the team, with Tyrone Mings, with Ezri Konsa being a real core, you know, spine of the team, with Watkins, Martinez, etc., McGinn, and thinking, well, that's what gets that team going now. And look, I don't think Mings coming back in is going to answer all our problems as well as Kamara coming back in. And obviously, we've done phenomenally well with Torres. Torres has been a big part of our changing our style of play and offers so much going forward. But I think when you are against it and you need more solidity, you've got to do what you could do now, I think, to try and shut up shop. I'd much rather be in a situation where we're not having to score 3-4 goals to win every game, but we're being a bit more defensively sound. The other thing with it is this, though: defensively sound, you catch people on the counter, but we're not particularly good at converting our chances now when we're breaking away. So you don't have that ability now. Look at some of the goals we've conceded and the Alamo coming at us from our own corners, right? But you wouldn't be that confident now. Let's be clear. If Bailey, Rodgers, Watkins were driving forward now, I think somebody would probably mess it up. As we've seen in the last few weeks.
Exactly. I mean, it's interesting because we've faltered at the back in terms of being quite open, and we've also missed a lot of high profile chances. And I know Watkins has got 7 goals or six goals in 12 appearances, which, you know, to all intents and purposes is pretty good. Goal every other game. And I think the contributory factors really around that are the fact that Bailey hasn't scored a goal, McGinn hasn't scored a goal, Rodgers has only got 2 or 3, Tielemans hasn't scored a goal. So and Ramsey hasn't scored a goal. So they're the things there that are really affecting us. Whereas last season, Luiz had already got 4 or 5 goals. Diaby had got 4 or 5 goals. McGinn scored 2 or 3 goals. So I think we'd scored something like 10 or 15 goals more at this stage last season. We've only conceded actually 2 more than we did last season. I think AVFC Statos, I had briefly looked at these stats. So it's interesting, and it is where we're slightly disjointed going forward, but we're also being punished for being open at the back, whereas we might have been 2 or 3-0 up at this point in the game last season, and then lose 3-1 to a soft goal. Whereas at the moment we're having to fight our way back from being 1-0 down, 2-1 down, which is good character, but it's just not gonna. It's not sustainable in terms of winning games, is it, Martin? That's the problem, and I think hopefully, I think Steve, who is it who said here, putting us back four. I think it's James said there, a fixed back four of Cash, Konsa, Paradinha. Sometimes going back to, the kind of tried and trusted might be the best option.
Yeah, I feel like we've kind of chopped and changed around that back four a lot, which is something I'm not really comfortable with, because as a manager or coach or whatever position that you're in management, your first priority is to make sure that your back four and your goalkeeper is solidified, that they're the number one choices. They're the ones that are playing week in, week out to give you that defensive mindset. And plus, your midfielders and your attack know that they're sound defensively, that if anything gets past them, they know they can rely on their defence to bail them out. And at this minute, we've really chopped and changed. I know injuries hasn't really helped with Matty Cash, so we've constantly had to make shift with Carlos and Konza, and then plus Tyrone Mings coming back. We've had to bring him into the fold sometimes. So it just feels like we've chopped and changed our defence a lot, and I think it's unsettling, not just for the team, but for the fan base, because if you don't see the same defence week in, week out, it kind of says to me that it just feels like, is everybody like not playing well? Because, you need to have that solidification in your back line. So, but Ian Matson, it's just unlucky for him because Dean is just playing out of his skin. I was surprised to see him start against Crystal Palace, but in saying that, he still had a good game. But when you look at the rest, I know Konza was injured, but it's just not up to scratch. I just think that, Bogar we brought in, he's not up to the level. Although he's still a young kid, I still think there's a player there. Carlos, for me, just makes so many mistakes. And, we need that back forward. That comment was just there of Cash, Konza, Pau, and Dina. That to me, and Martinez behind that to me is our best defense. That to me is the defense that should be playing every single week, unless there's an injury, of course, or a suspension, then you have to deal with it. But in saying that needs to be the back five every single week, because that's the ones that are putting in the best performance events. They're the ones that are conceding the least amount of goals, and then everything else, once a player comes in, feels like it just falls apart and there's just no chemistry to it.
Yeah, it does feel like that a little bit. I mean, it's that kind of bridge between, I think I mentioned it maybe last week or the week before, the bridge between sort of the big club and being able to rotate your squad and everyone coming in and knowing what they should be doing and just slotting in and kind of strutting their stuff, if you like. And then the team that needs to be, know its best 11 week in, week out, and then changes come in when it's necessary, or, players have to work their way into the team. And that's where I think we're kind of trying to bridge that gap at the moment. Like, we're not quite sure whether we are a Champions League club that can rotate different teams for the Champions League and the Premier League, or whether we have to really go for just what is our tried and trusted team, which is, I don't know, maybe we just have to work our way through this stage and keep going. But it does, like you say, Martin, it does feel disjointed. It just a little bit. It does feel like we're kind of scratching around and trying to act like this big club, but not necessarily showing it. And that's, it's almost like a swan swimming on the water. It's trying to look serene on the top, but the legs are going crazy underneath, trying to keep it afloat. And it just feels a little bit like that sometimes in the games.
Yeah, 100%.
Kev, with regards to kind of tomorrow's game, I think we're kind of talking about Konsa and Kamara coming back in. What else would you do? I'll bring up kind of FOTMob. We haven't done a predicted lineup at the minute, but you might be able to talk through what you would do. But yeah, how would you what changes would you make, if any, from Saturday's game, and how would you kind of approach it?
Well, I mean, look, it's an interesting one, this point around the team, isn't it? And what kind of club do you want to be, and are you good enough to be able to make the changes we're making? I think the thing is, in modern football, to compete, I think you've got to. I think you've got no choice but to use the squad. I think otherwise you'll burn out. It's not 1980-81 anymore. You can't win anything, with just using 13, 14 players. So this is why there's a big point to be made around the people not taking their opportunities in the team. However, that being said, you do need some solidity, in any kind of team. You need to have the confidence and the knowledge that you've got that same core set of players playing in their best positions. And I'd include McGinn in that, who's better centrally, as people have said, rather than wide. Konsa, who's better centrally rather than right back, because obviously you move that piece of the puzzle somewhere else, but it then leaves a bit of a gap in the other part of the puzzle. So,
yeah.
It's a situation where it's a necessity, but also there's been some naivety, I think, from Unai. I think he's been let down by some of the players, and I think actually weirdly some of the key players have let him down. So for tomorrow, I think he's got to be going as solid as he can. I think if it is fitness allowing, I think you've got to be going Digne, Pau, Konsa, Cash. I think you've got to be going for that as a back four with Martinez behind him. And I think if he's fit enough, I'd have Kamara straight back in, particularly with Onana being out. And I think there's an argument to play McGinn centrally. But then there are obviously we are lacking options in wide positions, because if you're doing that, then really you're forced to play two players. You're probably the two of the most sort of low form players in the league, I would argue. And I'm looking at that from the eye test rather than necessarily stats and XG and assists and all that kind of stuff. So I do think it is a bit of a challenge. I actually think that defense kind of picks itself, unless for reasons of sort of tactics that they've looked at, they decide they want to play Mings and Konsa or Maatsen, whatever it might be. It's further forward, I think, the real challenges are. I think fitness-wise, Tierney is going to play, isn't he? McGinn's going to play. Kamara will be a question whether it's him or maybe Barkley plays.
Barkley was good the other day. I actually thought Leon Bailey was our best player on Saturday, by the way.
You know what?
I have to agree with that point there. Yeah, I thought Bailey was our best player. He was getting so many chances. He was very unlucky to hit the post with his right foot. He was all over the place. Great ball that he done in behind sometimes. So I felt he was our best player in the day. So hopefully that's him kicking back into form.
Well, listen, I will say that I didn't see. I probably saw 5 minutes of the game on Saturday. Busy weekend, kids getting soaked to win away games, as everyone was at the weekend. But I had a kids football match Saturday and Sunday, so I got double drenched twice. Thanks. Thanks.
Onion?
What?
Do you want an onion?
No, it's all right. I was already wet enough. I don't need tears adding to the. My socks and my underwear were like I've been in a pool in an ice bath. So I didn't see much of the game. So I will actually say that if Philogene and Bailey played, they might have been brilliant, and I didn't see it. And if you say
Philogene was awful, he was awful.
Okay.
Like But he was
I heard Bailey first half wasn't good.
No, I thought he was fine. I honestly thought he was good all game. He was the one. I mean, I put a tweet out saying, what picture of Watkins, Rodgers, and Bailey is needed a big game from all three of them. And I'd say Watkins was pretty good. Missed a couple of good chances, but was always trying. Obviously, got his goal. Rodgers was poor. Was very poor all game. Tried hard, but just was always trying too hard and kept ball was bouncing off him. His passes were getting blocked. He was getting tackled. And I feel like him and McGinn, they're almost told to stand in a certain position, but they're not moving. Like they're standing still in that position. Like, whereas what you want to be doing is you want to be arriving in that position as you get the ball. So then you can take the ball on the move. And I feel like Rodgers and McGinn are just standing still. Now, McGinn can sometimes get away with that because he can use his backside to spin the defender. But now they know what he's doing. So he kind of looks silly when he's trying to turn them because they just stand off him. So it's almost like they're just standing still in position and then they're just easy to take the ball off them, or the ball just bounces off them because they're facing the wrong way. But actually, I thought Leon Bailey was the one player out of everyone who was actually looking like he could do something. Yes, he gives the ball away, but wingers, I was doing, statistics for some attacking midfielders that Villa might be looking at before. And every one of them is like give away possession 16.9 times or whatever per game. That's because they're doing high risk, high reward passes. So to judge Leon Bailey on like whether he loses possession or not is kind of unfair because if you take on the left back 5 times, the chances are that left back is going to tackle you 4 times out of 5. But the one time that you get past them, if you put it across the box, which he did in the second half, you're expecting John McGinn to put it in, and that's what you pay your money for. Whereas whereas the defender is going to pass the ball along across the line, and then that's it. That's an easy pass. So for example, if the winger's against Matty Cash, and we say, and the winger tries to go past him, say Mitoma or someone who we know is a dangerous winger, and Matty Cash beats him and tackles him, we go, oh, that's brilliant defending from Matty Cash. We don't say that's terrible wing play from Mitoma. We say that's brilliant defending from Cash. So if Bailey doesn't go past his fullback, we go, that's terrible from Bailey, but we don't go, that's really good defending from the fullback. Because that's how it works.
I think that is a fair point, but I think we've also seen Bailey's not been anywhere near where he's been at it.
No, I appreciate that. That is beside the point. That's like he just has to keep playing and keep doing what you just have to try and keep trying to knock the door down. But what I'm saying is like if you're judging whether he beats the fullback, if he tries to beat the fullback, fair enough, and he loses the ball, fair enough. You have to just keep trying and try and try. And it's when he doesn't try and do it, when he takes the easy option or gives the ball away from an easy pass, that's where it becomes difficult. What I would say is as soon as Cash came on in that second half, the difference between Cash and Bailey in terms of relationship is just it's crazy. Like, because they know where each other's playing, they know what to do. But Philogene at the moment, they just don't want to give him the ball. They just don't want to give him the ball.
I feel like Philogene,
they don't trust him.
Yeah. I feel like Philogene defensively is actually great because he puts in a lot of work defensively. And, he really wants to get the ball back and win possession for his team. And that's admirable. But going forward, it's just not going right for him. And you can see that he's trying, but it's not going right for him. He's losing the ball in key areas. He's not making that pass quick enough. And you're right in what you're saying, Rich. They're very reluctant to give the ball to him because he's losing it in key areas of the football pitch as well that they'll probably get punished for. So they're trying to turn the opposite side. And, he's just not up to that level yet at this minute. Will he get to that level? I don't know. He might surprise us later in the season, but at this minute, it's just not working for him. Like, I think defensively, he's great. Like I said, he puts in a great shift and absolutely nothing wrong with that. But when you're talking about a winger, it's great to have this defensive mindset to you, but your main priority is to have your attacking output. And at this minute, Philogene is just not cutting to that at this minute. It's just not happening for him. So if it's a case in January, he has to be sent on loan back to the Championship to get him that confidence levels back, then so be it. But then that means I'd hope to see another winger come in.
Yeah, let's just have a quick look. I will go to some comments. I promise I'll jump into some comments in a second, and we'll kind of round up the Juventus game and get some predictions, and then kind of talk general Villa stuff that probably link back to it anyway. But in terms of sort of the predicted lineup from FOTMAB, obviously they've gone with that tried and trusted back line. They've kept Barkley and Tielemans in, so haven't obviously factored in maybe Kamara starting. But like I say, I thought Barkley was good. But it is a bit of a slowish central midfield partnership with Tielemans and Barkley, a bit more ball playing, whereas maybe we were a bit exposed on Saturday with the kind of there with Crystal Palace's industrious midfield. Then you've got McGinn, Bailey, and I just, like I say, I'd like to see some more movement from McGinn and Rodgers. I just didn't see enough from them in that game. I know McGinn got the assist, but I just want to see a bit more from him, and Rodgers needs to really sort of get his touch right and get his movement right, and then Watkins up top. And then with regards to Juventus's team, I mean, you guys might again know more than me around kind of Juventus's dangerous player. I hear a lot about Cooper Miners. He's a dangerous player. Yildiz. Anyone else that you're kind of looking at there? Conceição, very very dangerous player. What have you, Martin, know too much about Juventus in terms of what their danger men are? Vlahovic not playing, which is obviously big for them.
Yeah, I was going to say Vlahovic, obviously, but he's unfortunately not. Well, unfortunately, but fortunately for us, he's not playing at the minute. But Weah is still a very good striker. He's very quick. He can run in behind, and if we go and play this high line, he's going to be a real threat. Like you say, Cooper Miners, he's a brilliant player. Conceição. Locatelli has been the heartbeat of that team, like in midfield. He's been absolutely breaking it up. He's been the one that's kind of been making it all tick for Juventus at this type of minute. And defensively, they look really solid. And they're in a really exciting title race in Serie A. Like, there's not really that much between the top 5 teams. And then, of course, Yildiz, who was their left winger, he's a Turkish player. Very good. Very good in the Euros in 2024. I thought he was really exciting. Because my grandfather, he lives in Turkey in retirement, so I was watching Turkey and I seen him playing. I was wondering who he was playing for, and it was Juventus, and I kind of kept tabs on him ever since. And he's a brilliant player, really exciting, very quick, likes getting behind, and he's very good with his feet too. So that attacking front four that was displayed on the screen really in itself is all a threat, because if we go and play with a high line, they've got 2 wingers that are really just going to exploit us. And I know they've got such a small squad, but a small squad means nothing on the day of the game. Absolutely.
Yeah,
nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. If it's a good 11,
it might tire out. That's it. It might tire out after a few weeks, but this is only the first time this has happened to them. So it means nothing now, but in a few weeks it could mean something else for a different team. But it means absolutely nothing now. So we have to be on the top of our game.
100%. Now, Kev, looking at their sort of Serie A form, 6th in the table, won 6, drawn 7, lost.
They haven't
lost 0. Yeah,
they're the only team in Serie A not to have lost this season.
Yeah, and they scored quite a few goals, 21 goals scored. So they must have had a few big wins in that sequence, but only 7 conceded. So they're certainly not going to be, as we know with Italian teams, and particularly in Europe, I'm sure they're going to be a frustrating nut to crack.
Yeah, I think, look, they've lost 1 in the Champions League, so they're still in a good position to strike. Still very, very much in the hunt for a top 8 spot. So this game is going to be a big opportunity for them against a Villa team that have not been in good form. And as we've said, you've not lost in 13 Serie A matches this season. That's pretty impressive. The only team in Serie A not to have lost yet. So clearly they're not used to losing. And they won't want to be changing that at Villa Park. The players, I think Martin summed it up perfectly. Yildiz was the one for me I was going to mention, definitely. I think he's a real star. Real talent, and by all accounts was their best player at the weekend in their weekend match. So yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a tricky challenge. This is a team that they've been decent at times this season, absolutely, and it's still pretty tight in all the competitions that they're in, and they have got obviously got a good manager, they've got some good players, but we have to hope that probably the absences they've got we'd have to hope we'd beat them even if they were full strength, because we're Aston Villa and we did it pretty much with Bayern, didn't we, when they had all their stars? But and Man City, okay, Rodryless, but we still, they still played a pretty strong team. And Arsenal, when we beat them, didn't have many out. So we'd have to back it anyway. But when you've got the likes of, by all accounts, Vlahovic is going to be out, McKennie's going to be out. We know obviously Luiz is likely to be out. They've got some players that are going to be missing. That I think might be the difference between the two teams tomorrow. Hopefully,
let's hope. Kevin said McGinn must play behind Watkins centrally. It's his best position, and it's baffling why Emery can't see it. Villa Forever Chad says we need to perform like we did in the Munich game. Tactical masterclass is needed. Yeah, 100%, mate. I totally agree. James said, thankfully, Dougie isn't playing. All ex-Villa players have a worldie against us.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's true.
Rachel said, recently it feels like goalkeepers are being picked by opposition fans for their player of the match. We need to be more clinical, but keepers seem to be having worldies against us. Yeah, I think that Bournemouth one particularly was crazy good against us. Bear in the Garden said, are we trying to play through the congested centre of the pitch too much? It does seem like that. It does seem like we're trying to engineer those passing moves. One thing I would say, and you might not have picked this up, Kev, with your kind of junior football exploits across the weekend, but it feels, Martin, that we're trying to fire passes into people. Now, I know I've criticised Morgan Rogers for his poor touch on Saturday, but some of the passes that are being played into these players, like, I don't even know if Zinedine Zidane would be able to control some of these passes. Like, they're absolutely smashing it into people with like three players around them to try and engineer kind of a move through the center. I mean, and no wonder the ball's bouncing off them, because the speed that we're playing these passes at is crazy.
Yeah, there needs to be an element of care when it comes to the passing, of course, because when you're absolutely milling it into somebody, it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Rodgers, McGinn, Bailey, Watkins, Tielemans, the ball's going to effectively either go against them or it's going to like touch back to back into trouble. There needs to be an element of care. Yes, put a bit of fun passing in, of course, to get that good touch, to get it through the lines. But I was in agreement with you there, Rich, because when I was watching it, I was like, why are we passing it with 100 miles an hour? We need to just relax, like move the ball, move the players out of position in terms of the opposition, moving them all out of position, and then we can go and exploit. Not 100-mile-an-hour passes into them and we're touching it back into trouble, or we're going towards trouble. We don't need to be doing that. Like, it was baffling to me that Morgan Rogers was having more touches of the ball, but it was just when he was getting them, because of the passing he was receiving. Yes, you can be critical of his touch at the times when it wasn't built into him, but when it was, which was pretty much most of the time, I was coming at him, boom, 100 mile an hour. And you're just going, why was that? There was no necessarily need to do that. And funny enough, sometimes there was even areas in the pitch when we didn't even need to do it. All it was just a 5-yard pass into his feet, and we still milled it. So I was just sitting there going, my God. And I felt we were lucky to get a draw against Palace, because that pass was not on point.
It was a bit bizarre, because there was times where we were trying to do one touch, like a quick pass into someone, then bounce it off first time, and then the next person bounce it off first time. And, that's really great when you're in form and everyone's buzzing and everyone knows, what each other's doing and you're full of confidence. But like you say, sometimes you just have to not always play safe, but just take a bit more care in your pass, because that first pass might be fine, but then it's the 2 or 3 after that mess up, and then you're out of position because you've committed players forward, and then all of a sudden you're on the back foot. So yeah, I think there was an element of that. Like, maybe it's forcing it, maybe it's because we're chasing the game, maybe it's because they wanted to get back into the game quicker. But yeah, we were really banging the passes into each other, which was a bit dangerous.
Yeah, and it wasn't even only that we were banging passes into the players. When we were putting the balls in behind the defense, they were still going way too far for Watkins to reach, or even Rodgers to reach. When we got in behind, they were well too far within reach. It was like what are we doing? Like, we need to look after these passes. Yes, put a bit of firmness in behind. Absolutely no issue with it. But it just wasn't working that day. Like, it didn't matter whether it was to him or to go through him. to get him behind the defence, it just wasn't happening. And like I said, we were very, very lucky to get a draw against Crystal Palace.
Well, Kev, finish up on the talk of the game tomorrow. I mean, we've discussed what we want from the crowd, what we're expecting from Villa in terms of being better defensively, what we're expecting from Juventus, and it's such a mouth-watering game, and I think it's kind of difficult to not use the form that we're in at the moment to sort of, I guess, tamper down our excitement. But it is something to be so excited about this game. So, yeah, how are we going to win this game? And if we are going to win it, I'll get your score prediction. What are your thoughts in terms of tomorrow night's game?
Well, it's just a shame, isn't it, that we're not in better form going into it? Because I think, if we were riding high, it felt a bit better, didn't it, when we went into the Young Boys game or the Bayern game. Bruges, we were already in a bit of a sticky patch. It wasn't a surprise that obviously it kind of continued a little bit. So yeah, it's easy to forget. Like, we would absolutely have given a limb to be in this situation. Even a couple of years back, when we're
still just 3 wins out of 4 in the Champions League.
I know. But it all of a sudden changes it. You lose one game, you go from basically being top to being like, not even in the top 8. So it is pretty congested. We've got to enjoy the moment, not be just, not be basically raffle ticket winners and just be happy to be there. But we also need our big players to step up. Leon Bailey definitely, for one, is someone that I think he's someone that I would love to see if he's got this resurgence that you've talked about in the second half. And then I think he needs to step up. I think McGinn needs to play well. I think Rodgers, you've got yourself in the England squad. It's time now to show everyone why you did. Watkins needs a good game. The fullbacks, because right now something's not working. I think when we look at the attacking play, we look at some of the chances we created. It is still, for me, from what I've seen, it's still unconvincing. When I see Spurs in their full flow, or Liverpool in their full flow, or even Wolves in their full flow, I don't think I've seen us look like that this season many times. We've created chances and we've won some games, but I'd like to see a convincing, confident performance from us. And I think if we can do that, the crowd, I think, will be absolutely behind them. Goes without saying. And you've got so many opportunities now when we are at the level we're at to turn your form around with a big win. And, you see teams do it in relegation fights, get a big win. It changes the end of the season for them. You see teams go on runs like we did in the Championship, that first win against Derby, and we lit the touch paper and we got ourselves in the playoffs. And we need to do that now, because this season, 2 or 3 more games of bad results. I mean, the knives will be out for Man City tonight. They've drawn from a 3-0 up, position against a team like Feyenoord with 15 minutes to go.
Mental.
This is what I keep saying. We've got to take these opportunities when these teams are around. Newcastle losing at home to West Ham. You've got to take these opportunities when the opportunity presents itself.
I certainly smiled, and I certainly gave my Newcastle supporting friends some absolute grief, because they gave me enough grief on Saturday when we managed to draw. We didn't lose against Crystal Palace, and they happened to lose against West Ham. So I made them known about it. But Kev, I'll read out some of the score predictions as well from all you in the chat. What are you saying then tomorrow? Score and scorers.
2-2 tomorrow, I'm saying.
A Desmond.
A Desmond, yeah. And I'm going to say Watkins and I'm going to say Watkins and Bailey, but I just think that at the moment they're going to score, and I think they'll be dangerous. And I've predicted wins in every single Villa game for the last 2 years. I feel, other than the last 2 or 3 weeks. But no, I reckon it would be. I reckon there'll be goals in it. I reckon 2-2.
Yeah, I'd take a draw. I would take a draw. We're currently 12th in the Champions League standings. Juventus currently sitting in 16th. So a draw wouldn't be a bad result in anyone's eyes. Who's Peter saying we're going to win? Aston Villa 1, Juventus 0. Come on, you Villa boys. I'm loving the positivity, Peter. Kevin says 2-1 Villa, roll on Chelsea. And I think he's got Bailey and Watkins as the scorers as well. Stephen says 2-1 Villa. Carlos comes on for the winner.
Oh, don't say it.
Interesting stuff. Aston Villa 1, Juventus 1, says Deontay. Kay says 1-0 and Rogers to score. He says we only do clean sheets in the Champions League. And Dicky says, I'm feeling like it's going to be a night like Bayern. 1-0, Duran to come off the bench and score a tap-in and lift the roof off Villa Park. And Des said, I've predicted our last 5 results bang on, so I'm not putting an opinion out how I think it will finish tomorrow. So I think we know what Des is thinking there. And David said, I do fancy Bailey to grab a goal tomorrow. So interesting that people are backing Leon for a goal. Martin, what are you saying then for score and scorers?
I'm going to go with my heart in this one and say it will be Juventus 2-1. The goal scorers are going to be Watkins, and I'm going to back a John McGinn goal.
So we're winning 2-1.
We're winning 2-1, yeah.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. And I'm going to... Do you know what? I'm going to stay with that 2-1 with you, Martin, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I say Watkins and Bailey as well. I think they look the most likely on Saturday. So I would say that. And we didn't lose. We didn't lose as well. You know, I have to say that with all the results that are so strange in the Premier League. I mean, Manchester United, the great Ruben Amorim didn't manage to turn it around for them. And, you know, Newcastle, as you said, it's so topsy-turvy, this Premier League at the moment. So I think we just have to kind of keep our heads a bit more level in the Prem, hopefully get that form back, like Kev said, and that will come, I'm sure. But the Champions League gives us an opportunity to surprise a few teams, maybe play with the shackles off a little bit, which is good. Chad says 2-1 Rogers and Watkins. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really good game. PJJ 2-0. I rarely get it right anyhow, so we'll see with that one. Just before we finish up as well and go into some of your questions and general points just to finish off the show, just a few housekeeping things. Make sure you go to our sponsor, our show supporters, our show sponsors, Football Prizes. To their latest prize is a signed and framed Morgan Rogers shirt. You have until Thursday, the 5th of December, to enter into the competition. Only 175 tickets available. So you've got a really good chance of winning. There's also instant win prizes available, including a signed Ross Barkley shirt. But the main prize is that Morgan Rogers signed and custom framed Villa shirt display. Tickets cost just £3.95. As I said, only 175 tickets available. They all the signed products come with that certificate of authenticity as well. So visit footballprizes.co.uk and search for the Morgan Rogers, the Aston Villa competition, and obviously it's a Morgan Rogers signed shirt. Also, I did a competition on X to win a Aston Villa shirt, which courtesy of the channel of your choice. So home, away, or third shirt. So I have put all the names.
My dad to win this one. I mean me.
I didn't see any Leonards. I didn't see any Martin Leonards in it this time round. Thank God. But I've put all the names into the random name generator of everyone who entered. So I need a countdown, and Kev, you can tell me when you could do the countdown from 5, and I will pick the random name. So, okay. And I'll get in touch with you on X to claim your prize, whoever wins. So count us down from 5, Kev.
Right then, good luck everybody. Let's go then. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And the winner is Jason JMA57. That is your Twitter handle. So I'll be in touch with you on DM. So make sure you have you get replying quickly, because I want to get your size and the shirt that you want. Do you want the home shirt, away shirt, or the third shirt? So yes, well done to you, mate. Congratulations to you. And as always, people, I haven't mentioned it tonight, but make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and do keep your comments flowing in. Help us on the road to 5K. Thank you for all your support. It is much, much appreciated. So please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. So I've started a few questions. Where are we? So I think Chad mentioned, and we wanted to cover this a little bit on sort of the fans forum side of the show. said, we don't want to get caught from our own corners. We can't
Yeah.
keep making these mistakes. So, Martin, you've done a couple of still images. We've got the one from Liverpool, which shows the Liverpool attack from our own corner with Leon Bailey basically exposed at the back. Body positions, Luca Dean, just not good there in terms of leaving himself completely exposed. And then we actually left an extra player back on Saturday, but still managed to get absolutely caught out from one pass. And it was Lamar Bogard that was on his own at the back. So what do we need to do from these corners? Like, what do you think we, other than put a tackle in, what do we need to do to stop this vulnerability?
Well, if you just go back to the Liverpool picture for me there, Rich, in terms of this, right, we have 10 players that are way too high, in my opinion. That's literally all our outfield players that are way too high. And then when you look at when Van Dijk played the ball, you've got Luis Diaz, Mo Salah, and Darwin Núñez making the runs. Now, in my opinion, Luca Digne is not quick enough to deal with these three. Bailey can deal with a certain degree. But when you look at the rest of the players that are in this area here, it's just they're not quick players, right? Let's get that out the way. But I want to ask the question here in the position of Pau Torres, who was behind Van Dijk, and then you have Carlos, who's beside him as well. Why are our two centre halves in that area of the pitch, right? Carlos should have been, in my opinion, deeper than Bailey and Digne in terms of making sure that if that pass gets played, he should be in an area where he can get to that and see it out and allows everyone to get back. Or it should be Torres to do that. We have committed too many players forward in set pieces now. Yes, when it pays off, it looks great. It looks fantastic. And Austin McPhee looks like a genius. But now, in the last few weeks alone, never mind just conceding the 2 goals, last few weeks alone, we've committed too many players up there. And we have seen players absolutely just run through us. Like, you look at Ismail Assar, who's absolutely quick for Palace. There he is on that right side there, just behind the referee. Once that ball was played out to him, he was gone, and he was always going to beat John McGinn. And unfortunately, Bogard is not the quickest player either, nor is Tielemans. Morgan Rogers was the one who was obviously tracking back, but he was never going to catch him in any night and day. So in my opinion, in that sense there, in regards to position, that should have been Ian Matson, who could deal with him pace-wise. And again, when we look at the position here of Watkins, Torres, and Bailey on the right side of your screen, none of them there tracking back. Like, that should have been Torres to be gone. Like, he shouldn't have been there in the first place. Well, yes, you can bring one centre-half up into the box. I haven't got an issue with it. But when you have Pau Torres and Carlos, again, who's in poor areas of the pitch and not making any runs to come back in an attempt, it just looks bad in a set-piece way from Austin McPhee because, yes, in my opinion, it should always be just, if you're bringing up a 2 centre-half, that's fine. But then your 2 full-backs has to come and tuck in. They're the ones who should be coming to tuck in. Unless one of your full-backs is a set-piece taker, and in our case, that can be Digne. Then you need to have players who are quick enough to kind of deal with that counter coming back. And I felt like in the Liverpool game, when we had 2 players that were just up, like to try and do the cover, wasn't enough. It should be 3. It should be the 2 that are sitting there, and then you have 1 centre-half just here to kind of clean that up if it goes above them. And then obviously, Emi Martinez's positioning didn't help him either, I think, because Emi Martinez was so far back and it allowed these players to come. Maybe he should have been a little bit higher to probably deal with all that. So it just feels like in that area of the football pitch that Austin McPhee has not got right.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And looking at those still images, it's almost criminal how high we are up, in terms of, Kev, when you look at your junior team and you look at Teddy's team, like, just Sunday League football, when they have a corner, you leave 2, if their team are keeping 1 player forward, you have 2 players back and you have them back, towards the halfway line, not on the edge of the box, just completely leaving yourself exposed to anything going over the top, which is what we've done the last 2 games. And yes, you could talk risk and reward and all that kind of stuff, but it also seems to be that whenever we just put the ball in the box and it's a good delivery and it's a simple header, we score a goal. But whenever we try and do these elaborate kind of set piece routines where the ball goes short, then it goes to the next player, then it goes across the box, and then they try and get a delayed run of someone in the box and try and put it on a sixpence, that's when we get caught. So I don't know what we're doing here.
Well, there's just too much risk at the moment. Like, I mean, I'm sure it'd be pretty exhilarating to run across all lanes of a motorway if you didn't get hit by a juggernaut. But I don't fancy doing it because, the risk reward ratio is not good enough for me. And when you've got examples at the moment of 4 or 5 situations where we've been caught out for goals like this season, I mean, there could have been more screenshots that went up there than that scenario. I saw somebody, I can't remember who it was. It might have been someone called Steph on X, did a brilliant video of like Martinez's view at the moment from a corner. And it was like basically hordes of attackers coming at the armies. And it was like, yeah, it's absolutely like that. It was actually Stephen, I think, put in the chat earlier, Stephen Van Leer, saying, I think, commenting about the kids' football, like probably similar to what Villa's like at the moment. And you know what? It's funny that you raise it there, Rich, because I was saying to my lads' team at the weekend, just almost a bit too narrow at times. You need to use the width of the pitch better. And it's funny, on my daughter's team, so she's under 9s and she's doing cracking. She's only her first season playing football, bless her. But they always generally keep 2 players back. This is 7 aside. So sometimes they're having to say, like, sometimes I'll be like, Esme, move forward a bit, and she goes into midfield. But at times there's no attackers near them. They've got 2 players back in a corner situation. Tell you what, they don't get caught on the counter attack.
Maybe Darwin Núñez and Luis Diaz are against them up. But yeah, it's right.
I mean, football it is simple. It is simple. Listen, the coaches we've got know what they're doing, but I think there needs to be a bit more kind of sensible approach to it. The one thing I was going to come back on was regarding your Liverpool analysis was, of course, being a corner, that you are going to have your 2 centre halves there, and if they
But I think
that's fine. But you need to have quick players that are in the back line to kind of deal with that.
I think he's right. Of like,
in my opinion,
maybe not
yes,
risking both of them.
I mean with Torres and Carlos, I think there should be contingencies with someone else there. Those 2 being where they are, they do a quick break, fine. But you probably need a quick defensive midfielder, a quick fullback. You need options back there to do it.
Yeah, I mean, just go back to having 1 player on the halfway line, or just in the D of the halfway line. I don't understand why you've got to commit so many players forward and leave yourself so open when you know how quick teams are against you. If we're coming up against a team like Nottingham Forest or a team like Newcastle as well, with the likes of Hudson-Odoi and and Elanga, and then you've got Newcastle with Anthony Gordon and Isak. Like, we're just going to get absolutely terrorized, every time we get a corner, and it gets to the point now where we're kind of scared. If as soon as we do a short corner, we're like, oh, please no, because we know that the delivery is going to be terrible. Just put the ball in the box, because we've scored. Onana's scored direct header from a corner, and obviously Ollie Watkins has done it against Fulham, and Barkley did it the other day. Just put the ball in the box.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that we're not beating the first man often, or that we're just not creating that many chances from it. From some of these intricate corners now and these elaborate sort of plans. It's that as soon as it happens now, for a fact the team are thinking, "Oh no!" The minute they break that press, oh my god! So maybe we need to just play it. Have a couple of less players up and. Listen, we've got to give McPhail the credit when these sensational free kick routines are working. We've also got to give him rightly criticism for the fact that we're an absolute shower of what at the moment from our own corners at multiple occasions. And it is embarrassing to watch. It really is. I mean, the only good thing for us at the moment is that Man City just are trying to steal our thunder without Bad Dave being So I could, anyone that slags off Villa now, I can just go, but Man City, we're doing better than them.
I know. It comes to something. Yeah. I mean, Kevin said if you can't win the ball, bloody foul them. It's simple, stops the counter attack. And Austin can just be for scoring. As soon as we lose the ball, all the players should revert back, says Stephen. Yeah. It just seems like we're just slightly overcomplicating it at the moment. Another question, Kay said, who do you think should be the penalty taker?
Ooh.
Now, this is an interesting one because Tielemans now has missed 4 from his last 6. It was a lot of criticism on X and other social media, you know, about Ollie Watkins had already scored. Why isn't he taking the penalties to get his goals up? Where do you sit with it, Kev?
Sorry, say that again. You cut out a bit then. Sorry.
Penalties. Who should be the penalty taker? Because
Ollie
Tielemans
Watkins
has missed 4 out of 6, and like I say, Watkins got a bit of criticism for not stepping up. You know, is it now time for him to take the mantle back of penalties?
Well, I look at it like this, right? He wants to be Villa's top scorer in the Premier League, and a good opportunity to get, who knows, 2, 3 in a season, maybe. You know, across 4 or 5 seasons at a club, that could be 10 to 20 goals potentially. I mean, Cole Palmer got 10 last year, didn't he? Ish penalties in the league. So that obviously really plumped up his total of circa 20 goals. But if you are now England's second striker, you could say actually it's confirmed really in terms of how it's been in the last year or so, ahead of Harry Kane. And you look at teams like Newcastle, Isak will take the penalties. Haaland will take them for Man City. I think you've got to look at it and go, I think he needs to be stepping up. It's only if there's been a directive from Unai that he doesn't want him to, because his ratio hasn't been good. We also have to remember that, I can say that, but then there's not that long ago, then a few of us were holding our breath when Watkins was stepping up to take penalties. So I think he should be the one taking it. But if there's a worry about his accuracy and you are analysing over a few penalties, we've got some prime candidates in that team. I would want to take it, but I would say Tielemans would probably be one of them. Tielemans, Digne, McGinn. I think we've got some players in that team that I would back. I'd back Ramsey or Rodgers. I think, you know, if they're in the team, you know, in decent form. But Tielemans, he's taken one, he's missed it. Now, let's be clear, that could have been De Bruyne missing it. You know, anyone can miss a penalty. But it just so happens that he misses it on a time when it would have taken us to a 2-1 lead, and then within a minute or so we're 2-1 down.
Yeah, the impact of it. The impact
it was just much more great. Yeah.
What do you say, Martin, about who would you? Do you think it's got to be Watkins?
Yeah, I'd be more in between Watkins and Morgan Rodgers. I think when you look at Ollie Watkins' record penalty wise, it's not great either. But maybe that's when I'd be more inclined then to kind of give it to Rodgers. But Kev makes a great point that if Ollie Watkins wants to be Villa's top goal scorer in the Premier League, and of course our all-time goal scorer for Aston Villa, then he needs to be on penalties. It's just as simple as that. But maybe I more or less be inclined to go with Morgan Rodgers, probably get his goal tally up and probably boost some confidence for him. Because with Thielen missing 4 of the last 6, as soon when he went up to take it and I seen the record, I went, you just know he's going to miss. So
yeah, I hate it when they do that. I hate it when they do that. Yeah, on the commentary.
It's just superstition, isn't it? When they put up something negative just before a penalty, and you're like, "Why did you do that?" And then that's exactly what happens. And then they go and score on the other end, and you're just sitting there going, "I just hate it." It's just, and I hate when Sky Sports do it as well. Like, you know, them little superstition stuff where. Here's the stats of when Villa went 1-0 down or when one team went 1-0 down. I'm like, don't be doing that because it's just annoying.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say, he might struggle a bit to be the all-time top goal scorer because Billy Walker got 244 goals, so he's going to have to.
Well, then fair enough. Yeah, he might want to have a bit.
Yeah, I want him to beat Gabby Agbonlaho's Premier League record because it is it 60 something goals or something. It's like
I think it's 74. I think it's 74.
Fair enough. Yeah, I just want that. I want a Villa player to get 100 Premier League goals. That's what I really want. It's about time we had someone do that. Adamsi said, I will take the penalties. So yeah, let's draft you in from Australia, mate. We'll fly you in every time we get one. That'll be good. James said that. Go on.
I was going to say I'd love it. I mean, well, maybe we mix it up. Just get a fan to take a penalty.
Yeah.
That'd be a new rule. Get the fans back interested in the game. That now on, if you get a penalty, you've got to get a random fan in the ground. It goes around like a light. You know when they do, you know, prize where it lies. And
that's what I was going to say. They do the prize where it lies, and if you get it in the middle, you take the penalty.
Yeah. Imagine how much better the passing would be. Because sometimes when I see prize where it lies, I'm like, come on, why have you put yourself forward? You can't even kick it, mate.
They always slip.
I reckon they grease it on purpose because they're trying to save so much money as a club now that they don't want to give away a shirt, so they put like oil down so they fall over.
Yeah.
Chris Hex out there an hour before the fans come in with some Castrol GTX.
No, we're not going to give away.
Hey man, there's no way we're going to give away a free shirt and a mug. No way, man.
We're not giving away a lifetime supply of Purity Ale. No way.
God, Marty's like, what's happened here?
Who's fans for him? It's fans for him.
Yeah.
James said after scoring, Ollie would have asked for it. Yeah. Kev thinks Dina should be taking it calm left footer. Yeah. Stephen says Martinez just for the laugh. Duran says Adamski. Maybe I think he took one against Wickham, didn't he? Duran. Stephen says McGinn Duran as well, potentially.
Duran, it'd either go top corner or it would go into like Witten Station, basically. So, yeah, I think he'd kick it out of the ground, wouldn't he, Duran?
He would. Tex just said the best penalty taker would be Pau Torres. So the way he threads the passes through the midfield to the front, quick reflex in his feet. Yeah, well, maybe Pau Torres could be a shout. Yep. Maybe. But we'll see. Maybe we'll get a penalty tomorrow night and we'll see who takes it. You know, maybe Tielemans will step up again. Maybe Ollie Watkins will step up. We will see. But it promises to be a fantastic game. And as you said, Kev, what a game to get us back into form. Yes, we stopped the rot sort of against Crystal Palace, getting the draw. Be good to get the win tomorrow to take us into that Chelsea game where we've got a decent record and we can certainly go and win, and that would again set us back up in the league to be, you know, a team to be reckoned with. So that would be really, really, really important for us to try and do that. It would be great. Boys, thank you very much for jumping on. Great preview, great fans forum as well. Thank you for all of your comments coming in. I'll be back tomorrow for instant reaction after the game, and also we'll be hopefully back with a bit of a full match reaction with the Lions Raw show. We've got in the away end with the Chelsea fan. We've got Chelsea match preview, Chelsea match reaction. So loads and loads of shows to come up. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already on your way out. Thank you for watching.
Really important one. Sorry, mate. Big shout out to Martin's chair as well.
Martin's chair has stole the show.
Yeah, Mike
stole the show.
When are you back to Westeros? When are you off?
Back to
the chair's going in goal, says Birmingham.
Yeah, put the chair in goal, yeah.
Game of Thrones bants anyway. Move on. Sorry. And as I remember, we'll follow the Villa. Sorry.
Exactly. You stopped me mid-flow, Kev.
I had to get the chair chat in there, sorry.
Thank you everyone for watching. Just remember Martin's chair, and as always, remember, we will follow the Villa.